Hello students, let us continue chapter 2 in Hornbill. We are not afraid to die if can all be together. If we can all be together. Okay, so let us continue with this chapter. It is my third video on this chapter. In my two videos, I have explained most part of the chapter, and today before beginning I am going to revise what I have explained in my last two videos. Then I will continue with the chapter. Okay, so let's begin. In this story, the narrator and his wife plan a voyage around the world just like famous Captain James Cook. They have been preparing and practicing their seafaring skills for the last 16 years. They get a ship which is 23 meters long and weighed 3 tons, wooden hulled, named Wave Walker. They test it in the roughest weather for months. In July 1976, they all started their journey for Plymouth, England. They sailed from Africa to Cape Town, which was quite a pleasant journey. Before heading east, the narrator hired two crewmen, Larry Wiesel and Herb Siezler, to help them tackle one of the roughest sea, the southern Indian Ocean. They encounter strong and alarming waves during the second day. By December 25, they all managed to reach 35,000 kilometers east of Cape Town. The family somehow manages to surpass the bad weather and celebrates Christmas together. They try to slow the ship down by dropping storm jib and hit a heavy mooring rope in a loop across a stern, but it doesn't help much. They carry their life raft drill, attached lifelines, wore life jackets and oilskins. Later in the evening, a vertical and huge wave strikes the ship and the narrator is thrown off from the ship. He accepts his approaching death and starts losing consciousness. When the ship is about to overturn, a huge wave hits again and turns it right back. He suffers injuries in ribs and mouth. He grabs the guardrail and sails into the ship's main boom. He instructs his wife Mary to guard the wheel, and he realizes that the ship has water in the lower parts. His crewman starts pumping out the water. The narrator goes to children's cabin and checks on them. His daughter Sue informs him about a bump on her head, which the narrator ignores because his major concern is to save the ship. The narrator does waterproofing on the gaping holes. This makes water to deviate on the right side. The hand pump gets blocked due to debris. An electrical pump gets short circuited. However, he later finds a spare electric pump and connects it to drain uh, the water. They all keep pumping the water all right, whole night long. Their midday calls are not answered as they are in the remotest corner of the world. Sue, on the other hand, has now a swollen black eye and a deep cut in her arm. On being asked by her father about her injuries, she tells she didn't want to worry as he was trying to save them. After 15 hours, the situation gets under control. The narrator decides to work in rotation and rests. The water levels are controlled, but the leaks were still there below the waterline. The ship is in bad shape now. It is not in a condition to reach Australia. And so they decide to reach the nearest island, Ile Amsterdam, a French scientist base, as their supporting engines were also damaged and chances of the ship to reach the destination are very low. So that evening, Mary and the narrator sat together holding hands as the motion of the ship brought more and more water in through the broken planks, and they both were feeling that their end was near. Okay. So now let's begin. Today I will explain the rest part of the chapter. From this paragraph I am going to explain but wave walker. I hope you people are ready for the same. But wave walker rode out the storm, and by the evening of January 6, with the wind easing, I tried to get a reading on the sextant, an instrument to measure the altitudes and navigation. Back in the chart room, I worked on wind speeds, changes of course, drift and current in an effort to calculate our position. The best I could determine was that we were somewhere in 1,50,000 kilometers of ocean looking for a 65-kilometer void island. So in this paragraph, the narrator tells us that the ship made it through the storm by the morning of January 6. The narrator tried to get reading on the sextant. He worked with the wind speeds, drift and current and calculated their position. They were in 1,50,000 kilometers area of ocean. Okay, and looking for a 65-kilometer void island. While I was thinking, Sue, moving painfully, joined me. The left side of her head was now very swollen, and her blackened eyes narrowed to slits. She gave me a card she had made. So further, in this paragraph, the narrator tells us, while the narrator was still thinking, his daughter Sue joined him and she was in pain. The left side of her head was swollen and her blackened eyes had narrowed down slits. She gave him a card which she had made herself. Sue, narrator's daughter, gave narrator a card which she had made herself. On the front, she had drawn caricatures means picture of a person in cartoon of Mary and me with the words, "Here are some funny people. Did they make you laugh?" I laughed a lot as well. Inside was a message, "Oh, how love you both." So this card is to say thank you and let's hope for the best. Somehow we had to make it. So further the narrator tells us, when narrator was busy doing all these things, uh, bringing out the water and taking the ship towards the island, then Sue came to him and she gave him a card which she had made herself. On the front of the card was a cartoon image of her parents with words written about being funny people and how they made her laugh. On the side of the card, she told them how she loved, and inside the card she wrote, she told her parents that how she loved both and she thanked them. This made the narrator realize that they had to make it to the island. Anyhow, it encourages, it gives strength to the narrator. I checked and rechecked my calculations. We had lost our main compass and I was using a spare which had not been corrected for magnetic variations. I made an allowance for this and another estimate of the fluence of westerly currents which flow through this part of Indian Ocean. The narrator rechecked his calculations. They lost their main compass and were using the spare one, which was not corrected for magnetic variations. He estimated the influence of the westerly currents which flow through the Indian Ocean. Around 2 p.m., about 2 p.m., I went on deck and asked Larry to steer a course of 185 degrees. If we were lucky, I told him with a conviction I did not feel he could expect to see the island at about 5 p.m. So around 2 p.m., he went on deck and asked Larry to steer the wheel to 185 degrees. He felt if they were lucky, they would see the island by 5 p.m. Then he went below and slept. Then, with a heavy heart, I went below, climbed on my bunk, and amazingly dozed off. Means went off to sleep. When I woke, it was 6 p.m. and growing dark. I knew we must have missed the island, and with the sail we had left, we couldn't hope to beat back into the westerly winds. So he went to his deck and slept. He woke up around 6 p.m. when it was dark outside. He thought that they might have missed the island. He started worrying about now how they would tackle the westerly wind with as how they would tackle the westerly winds. Okay, next paragraph. At that moment, a touched head. At that moment, a tousled head, a disarranged hair of the narrator's son Jonathan, so that is tousled head, appeared by my bunk. Can I have a hug? Jonathan asked. Sue was right behind him. So when he was worrying all about it, then his son came and asked him for a hug. His daughter Sue also behind him. Why am I getting a hug now? I asked. So the narrator asked why they wanted to hug him. Because you are the best daddy in the world, the whole world, and the best captain, my son replied. Because they replied that the narrator was the best daddy as well as the best captain in the world. Not today, John, I am afraid. So John replied, not for today. I am best captain and best daddy, but not for today. Why you must be? Said Sue in a matter of fact voice. So why you must be? Even today you are the best captain and best dad. You found the island. And further, she informed the narrator that they found the island. What? I shouted. In surprise, he shouted. He could not believe it that they found the island. It's out there in front of us. She said the island is out there in front of us. They chorused as big as battleship. They informed him that the beautiful island was as big as a battleship. So he asked that why he was getting a hug. His son replied that he was the best daddy in the world and also called him the best captain. The narrator replied that he was afraid. Sue told him then that they had found the island, which was as big as a battleship. I rushed on deck and gazed with relief at the stark outline of Ile Amsterdam. The narrator rushed on deck and he was gazing with the relief at the stark, as the what was sharply defined by Sue and Jonathan. Outline of Ile Amsterdam. It was only a bleak piece of volcanic rock with a little vegetation, the most beautiful island in the world. So the narrator rushed to the deck and gave a sigh of relief. They could see the complete outline of Ile Amsterdam. There was a bleak piece of volcanic rock in front of them. It had a little vegetation. It was the most beautiful island in the world. We anchored ashore. Morning all 28 inhabitants of the island cheered as they helped us ashore. With the under my feet, my thoughts were full of Larry and Herbie, cheerful and optimistic under the dearest stress, and of Mary, who stayed at the wheel for all those crucial hours. Most of all, I thought of a 7-year-old girl who did not want us to worry about a head injury, which subsequently took 6 minor operations to remove a recurring blood clot between skin and skull, of a 6-year-old boy who was not afraid to die. So they moved the ship at some distance from a shore, and the next morning 28 inhabitants of the Amsterdam island helped them to move on the shore of the land. As he felt land again on his feet, he thought his crewmen and his wife. He also thought of his 7-year-old daughter, who was injured badly. She had to go through 6 minor operations to remove the blood clot in her head. His sons, who never gave up and was not afraid to die. So it was all about a family who decided to conquer the sea, who decided for voyage, and thus they completed their voyage, and what difficulty came in their way, but they did not lose their heart, and finally they got success. Okay, so let me summarize the whole, not the whole, most part of the chapter I have explained in the beginning. So what I have explained today, let me once again revise it, summarize it, then we will discuss answers to all the questions and other exercises of the chapter. So what we have discussed today, the wave walker sailed through the storm and made it. The narrator then calculated their exact position by working on the wind speed, as the compass was not working. So while he was brainstorming, Sue gave him a card that she had made expressing her love and gratitude towards the family. He instructed Larry to steer the course to 185 degrees. He said that if they were lucky, they could hope to find an island by 5 p.m. He dozed off and suddenly got up around 6 p.m. He believed that they didn't make it and was disappointed. His son came and informed him about how they reached the Amsterdam island, and he called him best daddy, best captain. They reached the island with little struggle with the help of inhabitants, 28 inhabitants. The whole team, the family and 2 crew members never stopped trying. Their struggle and hard work finally saved them. So it is all about the chapter. So now let us discuss question answer and exercises of this chapter. So take out your book and look at the questions. Understanding the text. List the steps taken by captain to protect the ship when rough weather began. Second, to check the flooding of the water in the ship. Okay, so we have to answer these 2 questions. We have to make a list. First one, to protect the ship when rough weather began. So the narrator decided to slow down the ship to protect it from bad and stormy weather. He dropped the storm jib and lashed heavy mooring rope across the stern of the ship. Then they had double lashed everything. They carried life there, life raft drill attached lifelines, and they wore life jackets and oilskin. So it was all they did to protect themselves, to protect the ship when rough weather began. Second one, to check the flooding of the water in the ship. So what did they do to check the flooding? To check the flooding of water, the narrator put waterproof hatch with covered of gaping holes. He diverted the water flow to the side. His hand pumps were blocked due to debris, and his one electric pump was short circuited. He found hand pump and a spare electric pump. He connected the electric pump to the out pipe and started it. So thus he tried his best to stop the flooding of water in the ship, to check the flooding of the water in the ship. Next question. Describe the mental condition of voyagers on 4 and 5th January. So what happened on 4th and 5th January? It is about 4th and 5th January. In this paragraph you can find. So on January 4th, the voyagers felt relieved as they were continuously pumping out water for the past 36 hours, and only a few centimeters of water was left. They had their first meal in 2 days. Mary found some corn, beef and cracker biscuits. So later around 4 p.m. the weather changed as black clouds marched towards them. The wind was now 40 knots and the sea was getting higher. The weather got worse and by the early morning of January 5, the situation was bad. So this gave them a mental stress. Okay, so it is all about January 4 and 5. Thus, so read out the question in order to find out. So read the text once again. Okay, in my next class I will discuss answers to the next questions. So thank you for watching the video.